Good evening, guys. Good evening. Good evening. Now, my grandmother recently had a procedure where they had to insert, I believe, a pacemaker, to attach a pacemaker to her heart. Apparently, her heart has been doing all kinds of things, and I don't know whether it's because she's been single for too long, and maybe she just needs somebody to uh, unsingle her heart. So they needed a pacemaker, and that experience did not work out well. Now, the procedure itself, I think, is somehow successful. However, the experience you went through was horrific. So I'm going to tell you all about this in a few other examples so I can explain to you some of the tough things about the healthcare in Kenya, things that we hope to change perhaps in the next couple of years. Because as I've said, Kenya is fantastic. Unfortunately, there are still many, many things that we need to change. One of those is healthcare. So what actually ended up happening with my grandmother is that they sort of anesthetized her. And she's telling me that she felt pain the entire time. Like no matter what they did, she was feeling pain. And somehow the drug sort of became less effective over time. And it was not fun. And that reminded me of my own experience. One time I had a cyst that had to be removed. And I remember being injected one time and the doctor waiting. And then he started cutting. And I was like, no, this hurts. It really hurt. And then he injected me a second time. Tried, I was still feeling pain. The third time, that's when he got like semi-numb that he could go on. So he started doing the procedure. And at some point when he was done cutting out what he was cutting, I think the anesthesia must have run out or whatever was going. It was no longer effective. And this was when he was stitching and finishing. I felt so much pain, you have no idea. You can imagine being stitched with almost zero anesthesia. It was terrible. And so when I took my grandmother and the same thing happened, and my mom was there too, she had a similar experience with her teeth too. Whenever I tried numbing her teeth, I mean, for her, it was like pain, 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 pain. And I've had these cases over and over. So I'm going to use these examples to explain to you some of the things we struggle with when it comes to healthcare in Kenya. And just so you know, Kenya actually has one of the best healthcare systems or best hospitals in Africa. I'm not saying we are the best, but we have some really good healthcare system, especially if you can afford it. Kenya has some really good options. But we've got a lot of problems with healthcare. So many problems we can't even capture in one video. But, wow, we have an outbreak of, I gotta show you this. Take a look at, yeah, yomde. Look at that. And all ripening up right on the tree. You know, this is why we love the village, my friends. This is why the village is incredible. We have more food than we can actually eat. So some of these are going to be enjoyed by our neighbors and our friends. Some of this will be enjoyed by our dogs because, surprise, surprise, our dogs actually love a pollo. Okay, there you go. Ha! Dongaloyu. I told you the village is amazing, and you guys don't believe me. I told you the village is incredible, my friend, and I don't have to go to the store. I was just walking randomly, and then I realized, we have free food here, my friend. 100% organic. There is no chemical, nothing. We just plant these. They grow wild here. And our job is simply to enjoy and share with our neighbors. Look at that. Just look at that. I told you, my friends, the village is incredible. Just look at that. Yeah, this is incredible. So friends, yes, I kind of got distracted with the boy thing. I love the village. This is one of the many, many things we enjoy. You gotta come and enjoy this. And by the way, I'm a Kenyan American who is returning to the village. If you are thinking about returning to Africa, and it doesn't matter if you're born and raised in Africa or you're born elsewhere, we help with things like that. If you are looking for real estate, building properties, and things like that, again, reach out. My number is here. I'm happy to help where I can. So anyway, that said, I was telling you about the experience that I had, that my grandmother had, that my mom had. All of us, different hospitals, different doctors, and having issues when we went for just relatively minor procedures on my part. I think the heart, what do they call it, pacemaker, it probably was a little major compared to what we've had. And this seems to be a repeating pattern where you go to the hospital and for some reason they never use enough anesthesia when you need a procedure. I'm not saying this is what happens everywhere, but that's been our experience. And as I said, Kenya definitely has really good hospitals. There are people who fly from different parts of Africa just to come to Kenya to get care. I actually know a friend of mine who flew from the UK to come and get care in Kenya and go back. So while we have some good things, we also have gaps here and there. So if you are coming back as a diasporan who is moving back to Africa, think about where you're going to live in terms of proximity to the better hospitals. Like where I live, I'm in Karateng, which is about 20 minutes from Kisumu CBD. So we're literally about 20 minutes from the next big hospital or the next decent hospital. Now, 20 minutes can be a nightmare if you have an emergency going on. So one of the plans that we have is to build a hospital not too far from here. So yes, as a returning person, when it comes to healthcare, think about where you're going to live in relation to the next best hospital. And I'm not talking about these small clinics or public hospitals. Stay away from public hospitals. Many of them are something else. There are few that have very good doctors, but many of the good doctors also work elsewhere. So in fact, some of them actually use the public hospitals as a venue for funneling clients to their private spaces. So in general, public hospital are things you want to stay away from. There are a few of them that are really good. And just because a hospital is private, it doesn't mean it's a good one. My own sister died because of a private hospital right next to the Kisumu National Airport. She went there, was completely mishandled, and sent back home. She collapsed and never made it. So don't always assume that just because it's a private hospital, you're going to get the kind of care you expect. That is not how it works. So think about where you're going to live in terms of proximity to the hospital. And then in Kenya too, you want to have phone numbers. There is nothing more powerful than having phone numbers in Kenya, where if you have a crisis, you can always call a doctor directly. You can always call people directly. And those are some of the networks we make when we're traveling. So before you move permanently, as you come back and forth, develop your networks. I have doctors that I can always call and send somebody. They will get care faster than anybody else. If you need help with the law enforcement and all that, have contacts. You can always call folks and get things done. There is nothing more powerful than your cell phone in Kenya when you have the right contacts. So make sure you have the right contacts. At the same time, wherever you live, once you build your home, I visit a lot of diaspora homes. Make sure you have emergency kits, because there are minor things that happen in the village that can really turn serious. For example, I've had cases where a person working for me gets a cut, a serious cut. And so if you don't have a first aid box, you don't have anything to stem the blood flow, somebody could easily die. So make sure you have your first aid kit, and to the extent possible, teach the people around you basic first aid and how to respond to things like a person choking, responding to fire. Even the buildings that we make, we often have our sprinklers all around the house, because we have just one fire station in Kisumu and it's the middle of the city. And so if we have a major fire incident, it might take them a little bit of time to get here. And so you want a way to be able to respond before the fire guys come. And so make sure you have your emergency kit, you have fire protection, you have smoke detectors. Generally in the village it's not as big of a deal, but especially you need carbon monoxide detectors if you use anything for heating in your house besides gas. So we always offer those options to our client. Do you need like carbon monoxide detectors? Do you need any other early warning systems in case there's something wrong with your house? Because unfortunately, in many of our villages, there may be a little bit of time lag before you get care. And so you got to do all of that. And then at the same time, folks who are in the medical field, if you are diaspora, there are so many of you guys in the medical field. Please help us change what we have in the village, because the people in charge of Africa are never going to do the things we want. I have accepted that. And so I believe it's our role as people who have been out there and people who live in Africa to do what we have to do to change all of that. So yes, the healthcare system in Kenya is good and bad. There's good parts of it, there's terrible parts of it. I have experienced both sides. So all I ask is make sure, and of course there are health insurance options that are really reliable and good. The only problem with many of them is still they still include a lot of the nonsense we used to have in the U.S. a long time ago, like insuring people based on pre-existing conditions and things like that. So yes, they're there, but there's issues around that. So I'm curious to hear about your experience with the healthcare in Kenya, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you and bye.